Is it on? No.
There's 7 people waiting.
No, he just rang me up, but I don't know what he wants. Shlomo, maybe. You told me it's B. Maybe it's.
We didn't have this one.
Oh, is it? It's out of it.
Only one.
Okay. Telsna. Oh, he must be from Melbourne. The son. He's also watching you.
There's Aaron Groner. There's Benny.
Benny there?
Talia Blue.
Benny
Yossi.
Anderson, yeah. Is he introducing him instead of, must be introducing him instead of that one?
Did you speak to him?
Okay, we'll wait a few minutes for a few more people to join. Oh, Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Lou. Okay.
Hello, hello.
Oh, hello. Baruch Hashem. Welcome everyone. Just as a way of an introduction, very short introduction, because every minute with Rabbi Lou is special. Just a couple of months ago, we actually had the schus to Fabreng with Rabbi Lou in the summer months, all the way till the end of Shabbos. Rabbi Lou is the shliach in Peachtree City, Atlanta, Georgia, and Rabbi Lou was also a shliach in South Africa when I was a child. I believe he's a brother-in-law with Menachem Munich, who we had the honor of speaking a few weeks ago. And I think one of the most unique things about Rabbi Lou is we all have this question that how can we, I guess, encourage and instill in the next generation same type of chayas that for those who saw the Rebbe in the next generation, and the unique ability of Rabbi Lou to be able to take a farbrengen of the Rebbe and to write it in such a way as if you were experiencing the farbrengen yourself, is certainly an incredible asset and certainly an incredible way to be able to encourage the new generation who may have not seen the Rebbe, have a chayas in the Yom of the Rebbe. And I know that not only does it help for people like that, but even for people who had farbrengens and saw the Rebbe, his ability to describe feelings of farbrengens and sichos are absolutely incredible. And his stories are certainly incredible. That's why it gives me great pleasure, and it's an honor to welcome Rabbi Lou as the guest speaker tonight, as our Hachono for Gimel Tammuz. And there's no doubt about it that, as I've said before, this is Gerem, a lot of nachas ruach to the Rebbe, and may we be zoche to not have to describe in all different ways how the farbrengens were, but to be able to be zoche the farbrengen with the Gula Mitzvah Shlema. Take it from me, Ad Mamish. Over to you, Rabbi Lou.
Amen. Shalom Aleichem, everybody, especially my good friend, Reb Aaron Grona. Indeed, Yud Shvat, when the Rebbe had the 70th anniversary of his Nesius, I had the big zichus of being in Melbourne and then being in Sydney for Shabbos. And it was really very memorable, especially memorable because it's the last place I went to Fabreng. After that, they shut us all down. And so, Baruch Hashem, we have the ability to Fabreng together, although not real, but in live. And that's also something very special. But today will be a little bit different type of Fabrengen because we are getting ready to learn a Sicha of the Rebbe. And although this Sicha is from Parshas Vayakhel, and Vayakhel took place quite a long time ago in the scheme of things, nevertheless, this is the final likut, the final Sicha that the Rebbe distributed, the Rebbe gave out, edited, and had it published before Chav Zayin Adar, which led to Gimel Tammuz. And so essentially, these are the final printed, published, edited version of the Rebbe's words that we have. And we make a big deal on Gimel Tammuz of the Maimer Va'ata Tetzaveh. Va'ata Tetzaveh was a Maimer that the Rebbe distributed 2 weeks before Chav Zayin Adar. And Chassidim look at that as just like Basi Legani was for the Friedrich Rebbe, and the deal that the Rebbe made from it, similarly, Va'ata Tetzaveh. And if you read the contents of Va'ata Tetzaveh, everybody knows and realizes it's quite easy to see that this is really a kind of final will and testament about the difficulties and challenges of Golus on all different fronts, and how Moshe Rabbeinu is the source of emunah in every generation, and so on. That's the Va'ata Tetzaveh Maimon. Well, this is the Sicha, the liquid that the Rebbe gave out. Just a small introduction. In 1958, the Rebbe was very encouraging Bochurim and younger light to go and speak in shuls. And they said that they don't have anything to say. And the Rebbe said, I said a lot. But after a while, they came back to the Rebbe and they said they need some more material. That was a way of getting the Rebbe to edit and to publish his own works. And they did that in 58 and 59. And again, the Rebbe did it again in the years 62, 63. And then it started more on a regular basis. Every 2 years, the Rebbe would edit and research and have it published. And 1 year, the Rebbe would leave it free. The 2 years of that was in 1976 and in 1977. Tafshin Lamed Vov and Tafshin Lamed Zayin. And then they were expecting the Rebbe to not do it in Tafshin Lamed Ches in the year 77, 78. And then the Rebbe suffered the heart attack on Shmini Atzeres. And a couple of days later, the Rebbe said, where's the Sicha for this week? And the Rebbe continued doing this until Vayakhel, 14 straight years. So a total of 16 years. The Rebbe, every single week, basically, there were some exceptions because some other things were going on or some other Torah was being published, like the Rebbe's letters for Pesach or something. But generally speaking, every Shabbos, you could expect a fresh challah, a fresh sicha from the Rebbe, recently edited and recently published. And it came out in little thin booklets. And then these were gathered together and were published in the famous 39-volume of Likutei Sichos, a treasure chest of the entire Torah on all of its fronts. You know, if you know the Likutei Sichos, you will know most of the ideas in Shas. You will know many, many ideas and be clear about many ideas in Chassidus and in Kabbalah and in Halacha and Minhag and on and on. And this is the final presentation. Until this day, we have not seen another published, edited and published talk of the Rebbe. And so therefore, there is significance in this when it comes to Gimel Tammuz. In other words, it's not just the final Sikha, but there must be, the content must be something that will allow us to understand Gimel Tammuz and this whole idea in a better way, and to connect to the Rebbe in that way. And so I am going to share the screen of the Likutei Sichos, and we will begin the Sicha. And at the end, at the end of the class, I will point out something just amazing, not just one thing, but a couple of things that are truly amazing about this particular Sicha. Let me get here to share the screen. And why can't I find it? Just one more second here. Please forgive my my ignorance when it comes to these things, at least. This is not it. Here it is. Okay. This I took from HebrewBooks.org, and so each page we will move over here. We're not going to learn the entire Sikha. Some of it I will share with you orally because it would take time. There are quite a few technical areas in this Sikha, but we'll do the gist of it. And we'll begin at the beginning. This is from Chelik Lu. How about that? Chelik Lamed Vav of Likutei Sichos. Kosov Harambam Behilches Shabbos. The Rambam writes in the Laws of Shabbos, this is chapter 12 of Shabbos. Hamavir, someone who is on Shabbos lighting a fire. The question is, how much of a fire does a person need to light in order to transgress, to be over, as we say in Hebrew, the prohibition of lighting a fire, which appears in Parshas Vayakhel. And so the Rambam says, Kol shehu, even if it's the tiniest amount, chayav, he has transgressed. And so even the smallest amount. But there is a detail here, there is a condition. V'hu, that only applies, sheyehet tzarich le'efer, that the person who kindles the fire would need the efer, the ash. Aval im hivir derech hashchosa, but if a person burnt the fire because he was destroying something, potter, he has not transgressed, because he's destroying. The Torah requires a person to do what we call in halachic terms, meleches machshavas, an intentional act. And since this person is destroying, he is not constructing, it's not considered a proper malacha. It's not considered a proper work that would be forbidden, that would be a transgression to do on Shabbos. It's forbidden to do it, but it wouldn't be a transgression. The sages say don't do it. Don't even touch a match. And but it wouldn't be the transgression if a person just simply was destroying something. There is another point in this about destruction. And somebody who sets fire to your friend's haystack, chayav, he transgresses, even though he is destructive. And we just said before that destruction does not cause a person to transgress. Why would a person who kindles someone else's haystack, why would he be considered a transgressor of Shabbos? Because his intention is to take revenge of his enemy. And as a result of this fire that he lit in his friend's backyard, he feels better now. So it wasn't just destruction, he was construction. He fixed his mood, he took away his nerves. And so, his Yetzer Hara was fixed up. You fix up your Yetzer Hara, you're no good. You've transgressed. So here we have 3 points. A person who kindles a fire, it's even the smallest amount. But there has to be a need for it, not just a simple lighting of a match, but he needs the ash that is on top of the match. But destroying, though, is not considered a proper act. However, destroying your friend's haystack is considered a proper act because the person actually has gained something. He has gained a calmer demeanor. All right. Now, v'chein, and so too concludes the Rambam, hamadlik es haner, someone who lights simply a candle, or yes ha'etzim, or he lights wood, bein lehischamim, whether it is to become warm, bein lahoir, or it is for the use of light, and is a chayev, that person has transgressed. So now we have another point here. In other words, it seems to be that if somebody needs, and the purpose of the light is for, it has a purpose. The purpose is either for warmth or it is for illumination. In this case, the person has transgressed Shabbos. This is the Rambam, the first law of the 12th chapter of Hilchos Shabbos. Here comes the Rebbe's question. It is known how the Alter Rebbe but his opinion, the Das Rambam, and how the Rambam explains this, in what means a person to kindle a fire that would be sufficient to transgress Shabbos. What does the Alter Rebbe say? She'inyan ha'havara, he explains, the idea of burning, u'hitzo'as ha'esh, is producing fire, Oi shemar beha'esh, or you increase fire. Either you light the gas stove or you turn up the gas stove. One of those, that's what making a fire is considered on Shabbos. Lighting it or adding to it. The alpha pisha hamavir einay chayiv, even though a person who kindles a fire, the Rambam just said he would not be transgressing, ella im kein tzorech le'efer, unless he needs the ash. So therefore, what do you mean lighting a gas stove or increasing the fire of a gas stove? If he needs the ash, then we know he has transgressed, but if he doesn't, then what are you saying? Alpha pikein, nevertheless, iker hachiv, the transgression here, it's not because you destroyed or you finished off wood. It's not because the combustible material has now been used. The problem is the increase of fire. In fact, the problem is you have lit a fire. So despite the fact that the fire is only valid when you need what comes from the fire, nevertheless, the idea is lighting the fire. And he proves it from what the Rambam says a little bit later about warming up metal in fire. And other commentaries the Rebbe brings over here that also say the same idea, that the point is on the fire. Because when you heat up steel or metal, there is no destruction here. Nevertheless, one would still transgress because the fire has been kindled and it's doing something. And then the Alter Rebbe finishes right on the bottom. It seems also from how the Rambam is presenting it here, the Hamadlik Haner. At the end, the Rambam says someone who kindles a fire, and he obviously doesn't need the ash, he doesn't need the wax, he needs the wax to burn, and he doesn't need the wax after he's finished burning it. Nevertheless, one still transgresses. So that's the purpose, that's the point, and that's the whole issue with a fire. And if so, this is the question on the Rambam. We're going to skip this paragraph, which says the same idea about increase in fire. And according to this, it needs a little attention. Lashon harambam the way the Rambam expresses, and in the order in which he expresses it in this halacha, in this presentation. The betchila, because at first, and as a main description of this action that would be a transgression, he first talks about a fire, that the ash is needed from the fire. And only at the end of this halacha, he also discusses the kindling of a fire for the simple need of the fire, to become warm, or to illuminate. And so if, as the Alter Rebbe explains, and other commentaries as well, that the idea, and the Rambam himself, that the idea is that a person should not kindle a fire, then shouldn't that come first? The first presentation about fire should be that if anyone who kindles a fire because he needs the fire, like a candle, or he needs the fire, the warmth of the fire, or he needs the fire to melt metal, then that person would transgress. And however, there needs to be the end of it, and there needs to be an outcome, and that is should need the ash, and that would be even if the tiniest amount. If he needs the ash of it, he would also transgress. But here he changes around the order. He starts off with the idea of ash, and only later does he go into the idea of fire. And we are going to move to the next page. There are several paragraphs over here that we're going to skip over, which are technical details, strengthening the question that the Rebbe just asked. The Rebbe's in chapter 2 over here, the Rebbe says one can answer that perhaps the Rambam was talking about all things that seem to be destructive and yet they are constructive. So if you're destroying wood, but you need the ash, or you're destroying the wax, but you need the fire, you're destroying the wood, but you need the heat. So he's talking about things that are destructive. But still, the Rebbe says it doesn't quite answer why he has to start with what seems to be a smaller condition, a lesser condition in the kindling of fire on a Shabbos than the actual kindling of a fire. And we will turn now to the third page of the Sikha to begin the discussion of the answer to this. And it starts right over here with Gimel. Yesh Levi said, this could be explained in the inner way, in the deeper way, in the Hasidic way, but by first prefacing the following introduction. The 39 forbidden activities on Shabbos are these works, these activities that were performed by construction and by performance in the Mishkan. The Mishkan was built in the desert, and each time the Torah describes the commandment to build this Mishkan, the Torah adds the condition of keeping the Shabbos. From here, the sages learned that obviously they didn't do the construction of the Mishkan on Shabbos, but another thing, they also learned that whatever was forbidden to do on Shabbos has to do with these 39 activities that were done in the Mishkan, or in construction of the Mishkan, or in performance of the Mishkan. So plowing was done because they needed certain spices, and harvesting was done for the same thing. Plus they had the showbread, the lechem hapanim that they had all the time. And oil, the pressing oil, they needed the oil, and they needed the wine, and they needed to cook, and they needed to bake. They needed to write on the boards different signals so that they know how to put them back together again. They needed to carry, they needed to finish every activity, needed to build and to construct, and they needed to weave, and so on. These are the things that are forbidden to do on Shabbos. So the 39 forbidden activities on Shabbos are the ones that were done in the Mishkan. And here comes a most beautiful, amazing idea that the Rebbe learns from this point. Shemizeh gufan muvan. From this fact, it is understood. From the fact that the 39 activities that are forbidden to do on Shabbos are the ones that were done in the Mishkan. Here we go. Even though the 39 things that are forbidden to do on Shabbos are weekday activities, are relegated to the weekdays. The Shabbos, therefore, they are forbidden to do on a holy day like Shabbos because they are weekday activities. Nevertheless, in their source, the source of these activities, and in their root, in holiness, because as everything in this world has its source in Kedusha, so the source of these forbidden activities on Shabbos are are main and focused activities that a person has to do to serve Hashem. Lasas meha'olam dira u'mishkan Hashem. That's how you make a mishkan. You construct a mishkan during the weekdays because you can only do it during the weekdays. But that's how you build a mishkan. That's how you build a place where Hashem dwells. Va'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'seichem. Create for me a mikdash. I will dwell in it. I will dwell in them, in every one of us. That means that these are tools that we are forbidden to do on Shabbos, but when we do them in the weekday, we create a temple, we create a mikdash, a mishkan, a dwelling place for Hashem inside of us, inside of our home, and inside of our souls, inside of our person. An amazing point here, that you can look at it from the negative. These are the things you're not allowed to do, but 6 days you are allowed to do, and you should be doing, because we all need to construct Hashem's mishkan, a dwelling place for Hashem. And so too in the details and the definitions, the halametes melachas de Shabbos of these 39 activities of Shabbos, which are forbidden to do on Shabbos. What are the categories of which a person over which a person transgresses? Yesodam ve'ikram, their main focus, is how they are our guide of how to serve Hashem. It's not considered a complete service to Hashem without these conditions and definitions. After this, after we know what's important for us to do in our own service to Hashem, it comes after that also what we are forbidden to do on a Shabbos. Without these definitions and conditions, we wouldn't know what would be forbidden to do on Shabbos. According to this, we can also say in our case, the inner reason, the reason that is according to Hasidic teachings, that in the beginning of defining to us what it means to light a fire, the Rambam declares that burning is only when you need the ash. Even though for kindling a fire on Shabbos is because of the fire, the reason why the Rambam says and defines it by ash, because the concept of lighting a fire in our spiritual lives, it requires ash, leftover ash. Dalit, Bir Ha'inyan, the explanation is as follows. Siv, it is written in the book of Mishlei, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. The candle of Hashem is the neshama of a person. Umeleches Mavir Ba'avodas Ha'adam. Therefore, candle, we're all candles. We all need to light a candle because we are obviously a lit candle. That's a neshama of a person. So lighting the fire in serving Hashem, in Yona Hadlokas Haner de Haneshama, is kindling that candle of our neshama, shehi boyer ba'ahava, that it should be burning with love, kerishpe esh, like a flaming fire, la Hashem, love to God. That's what it means in our own personal service of Hashem. We need to light our candle. Behine mavua betanya. It's explained in Tanya, just like the light of a candle. Naturally shakes and climbs, like wants to climb up. It seems like it's dancing because it's shaking up and down. It's climbing upwards. Why is this? Because the light of the fire Chofetz beteva has a natural desire, if you will. In other words, it has a nature to remove itself from the wick, and to cleave and go back to its source above. Fire, the reason why it's always going upwards is because it really wants to go. It wants to leave. The fire elsewhere in Chassidus explains that a fire is the most spiritual of all the elements. It's the above everything. And therefore, it has this nature, or God created it with this nature to show us that the fire really doesn't belong here, doesn't want to stay here. It wants to move. It wants to move back to its element. Hey, but wait a minute. If you do, you won't be around anymore. You won't be a fire. As he continues in Tanya, despite the fact that through this, it will become put out. It will become extinguished. And it won't have an ability to be a fire anymore down in this world. Even above, in the other world, in its source, is batel oiloi b'mtzias. Its entire essence will be gone. It's not needed anymore as a fire. So the fire of it won't be a fire any longer. That's what a fire does naturally. Continues Tanya. Similarly, it is the neshama of a person. Its desire and want, etiva, in a natural, that's its nature, to separate and to leave the body, and to cleave to its source and to its root from where it came. The neshama wants to go. Hainu, meaning, what is, when you say fire regarding a neshama, neshama of course is a spirit, what is the fire in the spirit? Who rishpe eish ha'ahava la'Hashem. It is the flames of love to Hashem. Hagoyimim la'odam, and that causes a person, la'alos l'mayla b'chalos nefesh la'Hashem, if a person reaches this level of going out, of a longing to God, to a point where the soul wants to leave. You feel like you just want to get close to Hashem. Like for example, the Torah says, the sons of Nadav and Avihu, who had this burning desire to get close to Hashem, and they did. Then the neshamas left them. And so on and so forth. Several areas in Chassidus points out, the Rebbe Sichos points out the different stories that really are summed up by this point. The point is that the person involved wants to go get close to Hashem. There's a story with the Alter Rebbe, whose teacher was the son of the Maggid, of the Mezritcher Maggid, Rabbi Avraham HaMalach. And he was called the Malach, the angel, because he had this, his feet, maybe 1 foot was down to earth, but he was really like an angel. And one day they decided that they're going to get as close as they can to Hashem. And the Alter Rebbe noticed that very shortly, the Avraham HaMalach's soul is just going to simply leave. And he fed him a bagel with butter. That's how the story goes, with butter. The Rebbe emphasized this one time when he was telling the story in 1986, on Shabbos HaGadol, that the butter is an important element to the story because the butter shows that it was not just a piece of bread, but it was a piece of bread that had a geschmacker taste, it had a good taste to it. In other words, it was the efforts of the Alter Rebbe was to bring Rabbi Avraham back down to earth, and he was successful in that. So the idea is that there should be a flaming fire, such a fire to Hashem of love that you feel like your soul wants to leave. And that seems to be a good thing. That's the avodas Hashem. Let's see. This is also the inner explanation that the person who kindles a fire, afilu kolshuhu, even if it's the tiniest, minute amount, this action of kindling a fire, ein lo shiur b'kamus, does not have a measurement to it. It doesn't have an amount. Because, as we mentioned before, kindling a fire by serving Hashem, It is the element of a person who wants to give his soul back to Hashem. You want to take his neshama and go. That this desire, to separate and to leave the body, and to cleave to the source of the neshama, although that the neshama will become nothing, which is batal sham b'metzias legamri, it'll become completely nullified. Nothing will remain on this of its first essence, of its first element. The Alter Rebbe explains this in the last parak of the Kutavarim we learned last week, that when a person goes up to this feeling of going up to heaven, it's similar to the radiance of the sun when it is in the sun. In other words, once the radiance stops from the sun, if you climb up that radiance and go all the way into the sun, it's not there. The radiance is only outside of the sun. If the radiance goes back into its source, the whole radiance is disappeared. It's not there anymore. Similarly, if a person has this element of love to Hashem like a flaming fire, his soul wants to go, but go where? It'd be expired. Go away. Doesn't matter. This flaming love wants to always naturally go up. This would be the source in the pintala of Yiddishkeit, in the point of Yahadus, of Yiddishkeit. Shehi, which is Chelek Elakam Ima Mamash. Every one of us has this part of Hashem Mamash. And therefore, the amount is not important. Because it's just a simple point. It cannot be divided above division. Even in the minutest amount, contains the entire quality of the soul. Even in the smallest amount of the Pintal Yid, that's the smallest amount, contains the whole essence of the soul. So, to go back again, the fire here is the fire of love to Hashem, like a flaming fire, and which naturally wants to leave the body, just like a fire wants to leave the wick that it's to which it is attached. And it doesn't matter how much, even the smallest point of a yid wants that with all of its soul. But there is a condition. The Rambam adds to this, together with this flaming fire, it's got to be the condition. The ash, the leftover ash. What is ash? Listen to this. Efer, ash, is the most corporeal, physical element of that which is burnt, consumed by the fire. What's left behind is the most gashmiistic element. As the Alter Rebbe says in the Geras HaKodesh, that when a person burns wood, the three other elements of the wood, which are Eish, Ruach, Umayim, fire and wind and water, Sheba'etz, which are originally in the wood to make it a piece of wood, Cholfu v'holchu lahem v'kolu ba'osh, have been removed and they have been wafted away in the smoke. The element of fire, the element of wind, element of water are burnt up in the smoke. Masha'ekin ha'efer, hanisha, the ash that remains, hu ha'ofer, is the element of earth, the fourth element, shaboy, within this piece of wood, hayered lamata, which descends downwards, does not go up in the smoke, but it goes down in a fire. Ve'ein ha'eish letes, by the fire doesn't burn it. Hu hanishar kayam, this earth element remains in existence. Hu chumri yosem mikulam, it's the most physical of all. So what is a ash? Ash is the most physical of the elements of the wood. This is the condition in the kindling of a fire. That the person kindling the fire requires the ash, needs the ash. The purpose of kindling the fire of the neshama must be, that's how you serve Hashem, loy bishvil ha'aliyah, ha'esh l'chud, not merely for the kindling of the for the elevation of the fire, that it be parted to separate the lotzes min haguf, and the neshama should leave the body. Ela bishvil ha'hamshocha, but it's for to bring the element down. Tzarich le'efer, has to be like ash, which is the most physical of all, the one that remains down on this world. Sheha'adam yargish, that the person who's kindling his fire of love to God should know and should feel shehu tzarich legashmis ha'olam, that he requires the physical elements of this world. Hainu, meaning shehu tzarich lehishain neshama beguf, his neshama has to remain in a body. And this neshama should be involved with the physical elements of the world, in order that the elements of this world should be elevated, should be cleansed, should be refined. But on the contrary, this is the whole purpose of kindling the fire of the neshama. The fact that the neshama has been inspired with this great fiery love, till the feeling that he so wants to leave, wants to return and wants to cleave to its source. The only reason a person should be able to have those feelings, the only way a person should behave that way is a person should have added strength. Chizuk, an added strength in his Torah and his fulfillment of mitzvahs as he maintains his presence here in this physical world. That is the reason. In other words, we kindle a fire. Good. What's the fire? The fire is love to Hashem, a flaming fiery love. And that fiery love may give you this feeling that you want to leave and go back up to the other world. And by then, you should realize that you need to come back down to this world and function in this world. Because in this world is where the ash is. The ash is the lowest level. Behind this is the whole idea of creating this Mishkan, the source of these forbidden activities on Shabbos. That's the whole purpose that Hashem created the world. Hashem wants a dwelling place down in this world. So too applies to the private, personal Mishkan that everybody has. As our sages say, Al ha-posik v'shachanti b'soicham. When the posik in Parshas Teruma says, and I will dwell in them, among them, he says, create for me a mikdash, and I'll dwell in them. So Chazal say, b'soicham echad v'echad m'Yisrael, it means in the inside of every single year. What does that mean to build a Mishkan, a dwelling place in every single year? She'ini v'lechas ha-Mishkan, creating the Mishkan, is making out of this world a dwelling place for Hashem. Therefore, kindling a fire is incomplete until you need ash. Meaning, the godly fire in his soul, he b'shvil ha'efer. Ha'offer is because of the dirt, because of this world. Remaining down here in this world and making this world into a dwelling place for Hashem, because Hashem wants us to be here, because He wants us to make a place that He should be able to be here. So that's how the Rambam begins his definition of fire. His definition of fire is really a message to us about what we need to do, not on Shabbos, but in the 6 days after Shabbos. We need to kindle a fire of love, a love that we feel that we want to just end up in Hashem. That's it. But that's not enough, says the Rambam. A person needs to realize that the purpose of that fire is so that it should have an effect on this physical world, because that's where we build the Mishkan. In greater depth, it doesn't really mean that the love that makes a person want to leave this world, and the other side, that you need to stay here, are actually two opposite sides, two opposite elements. On one side, you want to go up, and on the other side, you want to stay home. But they're not two opposites. But since the purpose of the intention of Hashem is for us to create a dwelling place for Hashem down in this world, therefore, the whole purpose of the inspiration of this fiery love, the whole idea of this inspiration is only because of what's coming at the end. That's the ash, which is bidur v'zikuch gashmis ha'olam, the refinement of the physical matter of this world. So, since that is the case, it's not it's not just that we need to do this, that this is the best way for it to happen, that it comes back down to affect the world. Ela oidzos even more. This condition about the ash, hu habachina, is the actual showing that the fire is a proper fire. In other words, it's not a fire if all you did was love. If all you did was like the two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Abihu. That's not a proper fire. Because when your fire of love is complete, the fire itself says you need the ash. I don't want to go up. I just want the feeling of up, so I should be able to make better ash. I just want the feeling of being closer to Hashem, so I can make this world into a better dwelling place for Hashem. The explanation is, since the whole idea of God's dwelling place down in this world, the making of this world, the transforming of this world, to a dwelling place for Hashem, that's what Hashem really wants. That which Hashem himself, that which Hashem himself, this is what he desires, since that is the whole purpose. How the movement is understood, that the higher a person goes, the higher a person climbs in this love, fiery love to Hashem, and he gets closer to his source. In the life of all lives, blessed be he in Hashem. He even feels more as an achitzus, the necessity, and the must, later lamata, to come downwards, and to be involved in refining the world. That it should be made a dwelling place for Hashem, because only in such a way does one fulfill the intention of God. So the more fire a person has, the more a person produces better ash, more ash is involved in this physical world. It turns out, when do we say that the kindling of the fire of the neshama melacha is an actual action, ba'avoida and a service and a real work, b'shleimus completely. Shechafetz haneshama ledavik ba'yisparech, that the neshama really desires to cleave to Hashem, who b'shleimus is complete. Vehi aliyah be'emes, and is a true aliyah, true elevation. Rak mevi alidei hamshacha lamata, only when it brings a person down to earth, tzarech la'efer, he needs the ash. So what the Rebbe is saying over here is very clear, that the reason why the Rambam would begin with the idea of kindling a fire because of ash is because truly, whatever we don't do on Shabbos, we are required to do, we should be doing in the weekday, because this is how we create a dwelling place for Hashem. So kindling a fire is love, ash is the physical world, and the fire needs to lead to the physical world, or the refinement of the physical world, creating a dwelling place for Hashem. And in greater depth, he says not that the fire needs to lead to that, but the whole purpose of climbing is only that there should be ash at the end. And just the final footnote here is number 27. Nevertheless, even if he kindles the fire of his soul just to heat up, or to be an illumination. Melacha is also considered a melacha on Shabbos, also considered an act. Even though you don't really feel while you're climbing that you want to come back down, because there is no benefit other than the actual fire here in this case, and it's lacking in what Hashem wants, which is to make this world a dwelling place. Nevertheless, since through this activity, there is the heat and the light of Kedusha that is produced, and as a melacha, it's still considered a melacha, an activity. And we can say, says the Rebbe, when you say laha'ir, that he wants to illuminate, he wants a light of his candle on Shabbos, it's also alluded to that the intention of a person by kindling a fire, has to be not just that he should be lit up, but also to light up the entire world. So at least that gives the element of the physical world being made into a dwelling place for Hashem. And that is the Sikha, which talks for itself. But now, let's think for a minute. Number one, this is the final edited message, published message from the Rebbe. And he leaves us with the element of forget about what's going on in heaven. Remember that every single intention, even as you start to climb, has to be what is going to be benefiting to illuminate this world. What makes this Sikha so incredible is that this is based, and I will show this now again. The Sikha was taken from something the Rebbe said on Shabbos Yisroi Tafshin Mem Tes, the Shabbos of the Parsha of Yisroi in 1989. That Shabbos, I will never forget. That was the Shabbos of the first Yortzeit of the Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka. It was Chof Beis Shvat, Shabbos Yisroi Chof Beis Shvat Tafshin Mem Tes. First Yortzeit fell on the Shabbos. The Rebbe led the davening, and then the Rebbe came into the Farbrengen at 1:30. The Rebbe made the Kiddush, and then the Rebbe began to talk about the day, the Shia Rambam of that day. And this was the Rambam of that day. And the Rebbe spoke about this for over an hour. And at the end of all the technical things, the Rebbe said these incredible words. Asot gebrenta fire. A fire was burning, and it took away the neshama of the Rebbetzin. And the Rebbe said that that whole purpose of the neshama must be that it will make a difference in this world. It will leave behind the ash, because without that, it's a waste of energy. The whole inyan of the Histalkus, that the fire came and took the neshama of the Rebbetzin, was in order that this world should be enhanced to a point where there is the Afer should be left behind. The focus needs to be on this world and how this world can be a better place. Incredible words in and of themselves. But this is the Sikha that is right before Gimel Tammuz, that was chosen by whoever wrote it, one of the two people who used to write these Sikhas, to be given to the Rebbe for the final published version of the Rebbe's talks. And what is it from? And from a Sikha that the Rebbe spoke about a fire that took a soul, and that soul needs to, the whole energy of that has to make a difference in this world. And what's even more amazing is that that was Shabbos Vayakel Chav Hei Adar Rishon. Monday, Chav Zayin Adar Rishon, was when the Rebbe went to the oil and where the Rebbe had a stroke. And look, Chav Zayin, number 27 in the month, there are 27 notes and footnotes here. Number 27 is the final one here. And what are the final words? Laha'ir es ha'olam, to illuminate the world. In number 27, the Rebbe says any kind of fire is good, as long as you illuminate the world. My friends, it's rare that you find that somebody should pay attention to the final Sikha, liquid of the Rebbe. But this liquid is burning, if you catch the pun, is burning with an amazing message for Gimel Tammuz. And that is that this element of Gimel Tammuz is not about Histalkus in the simple term, how the neshama went up to heaven and a fire took the neshama to heaven. Rather, it is about how much effort was put into this, has been put into this world as a result of that. And the whole point of Tez Chav Zayin Adar, Tez 27, Laha'il Ha'olam, is about illuminating the world. And I think we can safely say that since Gimel Tammuz, Chabad has not just continued, but it is immeasurable. It is unrecognizable to how it was 25 years ago when original Gimel Tammuz happened. Why? Because Hasidim and Shluchim and everybody else among Lubavitch realized that the whole idea is to bring the Rebbe back down to this world, to illuminate the world with godliness and with the Rebbe's message. And we have done that in abundance. Baruch Hashem. Obviously, we're not there yet. Our mission is to take the ash of this world and to bring that fire here, to bring whatever the fire produces back down to this world, so we will have the Rebbe back with us, and that should be taken from Yad Mamish, without any hesitation. It should happen right now. I want to thank you for the opportunity, which was a beautiful opportunity. I had to get up quite early in the morning, but that's nothing comparable to the geschmack of learning a Sikha, Farbrengen, with my fellow Yidden, with my fellow Chassidim, with my fellow Shluchim. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Is somebody saying something?
Gron is meant to be saying something. Give me 1 second.
Can hear you a little bit, Aaron.
Aaron, who's trying to silence you here?
Aaron, we're not hearing you at all. No, can't hear you.
So someone else can say thank you. You have to get up very early. Get here.
For some reason, I'm not working. Any?
Can only just hear you, just very, very softly.
Try headphones with a mic.
Sorry.
Talk through the guy.
Rabbi Lou, thank you very much.
They can hear you. They can hear you. Go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Rabbi Lou, thank you very, very much. I'm sure everybody is fired up.
Can I have
a little bit of chutzpah to ask you to
share a story with us?
a mitzvah perhaps from your uncle, the Rebbe Shavuos. I know that Shavuos was a very special time for him.
Here's something about a story.
Correct, yes.
He's asking if you can share a story of Meister, maybe about your uncle or something.
About my uncle?
Any stories you like. You don't have to choose his uncle. He's suggesting your uncle.
Who's my which uncle are you talking about?
Rabbi Jaffe, no?
No, but
Oh,
Jaffe.
my grandfather, you mean?
Grandfather, I mean, sorry. Grandfather, sorry.
I have lots of uncles, but
I meant your
yeah,
grandfather.
my grandfather would come every year for Shavuos to the Rebbe, and that was his Yom Tov. He ended up in the later years. He came also for Sukkot and Simchas Torah after he missed 1 year on Shavuos because my grandmother was having surgery in 1979. So in late 1979, he came for Simchas Torah, and when he was in Yechidus, the Rebbe told him the next year's Hakel, you'll need to come for Sukkot, not just Simchas Torah. And when he was in Yechidus the next year, the Rebbe said to him, "The next year will be even better. So make sure you're back next year." Once the Rebbe told him 3 times to come, that he realized that it's his time as well. But Shavuos he never missed other than that year. And a lot of Englishmen would come in. The weather was nice and it was only 2 days and you still had the full brunt of a Yom Tov and so on. And 1 year, my grandparents would stay usually in the house of Mendel Shem Tov, Olav Shalom, because Rabbi Ben Zion Shem Tov, Mendel Shem Tov's father, was a shliach in England, and my grandparents were very close. But eventually, the Shem Tovs had too many kids, and it was too much of an imposition. And my grandparents ended up going to on top of the Koilel. There used to be a building behind 770 on Union Street. And that building was like a house. And in the bottom floor, they took out all the walls, and the Koilel would sit there and learn there. I learned in the Koilel there myself. The second floor was rooms for the Koilel, like rooms for classrooms and stuff like that. And in the top floor were bedrooms, like an apartment up there. And this apartment was given to guests who came to stay. These for Pesach, and this one for Tisha B'Av, and the other one for Tishrei, and the other one for Hanukkah, and Yom Kippur, and Shvat. My grandparents would always get this apartment from the Rebbe, and it was administered through Rabbi Krinsky. And it was terrible. The apartment was used by a lot of people. It was never really turned into a proper apartment. It was just left the way it was when whoever sold the house sold it. And they put a couple of beds in there, and they made sure the stove was in there, and you were on your own, the bathroom. And I was there many times myself as a little kid. I remember the place. And my grandfather would always complain to the Rebbe that there was no there was a problem over there with the kollel. In 1973, one year the Rebbe said, I hear what you're saying. It's out of my control. I've tried to do whatever whatever I could, and I've been unsuccessful. And therefore, I would have no faribel. I will have no problem if you just stayed home for Shavuos. It would make me feel better instead of having a place that doesn't quite fit to your standards. That's the letter the Rebbe sent to him. My grandfather immediately wrote back, Chas v'sholom, it's a chazaka, he can't break it. He wants to be with the Rebbe, and that he'll figure it out. He doesn't mind staying in a bench if that's what it takes. He was just, he didn't stop talking to the Rebbe all the time. He wrote a letter to the Rebbe every single week without fail. Anyway, 2 weeks before Shavuos, or a week before Shavuos, the Rebbe is coming to 770 with Benjamin Klein, and the Rebbe says, can you please turn on Union? Go down Union, not on Eastern Parkway. He goes to Union, and the Rebbe stops. It says a stop in front of the kollel. There was no chance to warn anyone, and the Rebbe walks straight up the steps into the front door of the kollel. Imagine that. Out of the blue, the Rebbe makes an appearance. The Rebbe walks straight through downstairs where everybody is learning. He's looking around on the table and to see the sforim that are open in front of the kollel Yungelite. Then the Rebbe goes upstairs, and then the Rebbe goes to the third floor and inspects the entire thing. And then the Rebbe came down and gave whatever instructions to be given about the condition up there. This is 1970, I think it's 1972 or 73, one of those 2 years. And I know that Rabbi Grona's father, Rabbi Shalom Ber Grona, living in South Africa, was one of the kollel Yungelite then. He was sitting in the kollel then. The Rebbe sent out the next morning a long sheet of paper to Rabbi Hachono about the different things that he saw wrong in the kollel. First of all, he said, how come that this one's learning that book and the other one's learning from this book? That there's no real learning together going on over here. Everybody's learning wherever they are. And he said there's schmatters all over the place and there's garbage in every corner. I mean, you could imagine, guys are sitting there, they just finished yeshiva, and when they finish smoking, when they finish their cups of coffee and the towels of the mikveh and everything else is all over the place, strewn all over the place, coats and whatever could have been there. And the Rebbe said that I was the one who started the kollel. There's never such thing as a kollel in Lubavitch until I took the risk. And it's on my achrayas, this is my responsibility. And unless these things will change immediately, effective immediately, I'm shutting down the kollel. And I want a report back of all of this. And then my grandparents arrived, and boy, did they ever receive an onslaught. How dare you ask the Rebbe to inspect your silly private Yom Tov quarters and all of that. My grandfather says, Chas v'sholom, I never asked the Rebbe for any of that. This is not for me. My grandfather says he was afraid to walk into the kollel because every time he walked in there, the people looked at him as if it was gnashing of teeth, that they want to get him. But he says, you guys are the real culprits over here, because the Rebbe came in obviously to inspect the premises, but what he saw was much more than he bargained for. You can blame the messenger, but really the Rebbe was giving them a piece of their mind. That's one story that falls into my mind, a Shavuos story right after Shavuos of my grandfather. There's many, many stories like this, and of all different kinds. I shared some of them when I was there for the Shabbos after Yud Shvat. But here's a good story of a burning fire, a flame of fire of love to the Rebbe. And somehow the Rebbe decided to take matters into his own hand, which is extremely unusual and definitely, it's a one-time thing. Rebbe never again walked into that building. And by the way, that building does not stand anymore. It was dilapidated to a point where it's a shell. It's just an empty shell right now, completely boarded up. The kollel is much, much bigger than it was, and it learns on Kingston Avenue now. It's on Kingston Avenue on top of the offices of Tzach. All right, my friends. Freilichen Sommer, you should have a Freilichen Sommer and a meaningful Gimel Tammuz, which should lead to us illuminating the world, and it cannot be any greater illumination than bringing the Rebbe back down to this world where the Afer, where the ashes.
I think Aaron's telling you to share 2 more stories before you spend the rest of your day in isolation. Hopefully there's no riots outside in Georgia at the moment, so if not, you can bring the whole day if you need to.
We've shut it down. They have shut it down.
Wow.
Anyway.
Okay. So you've got the whole day to go. We're staying up all night, so.
Hey, listen, the Farbrengen is on a different pay scale. That's for a different time. Maybe Gimel Tammuz itself will be able to Farbrengen. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Be'emes, thank you for the opportunity. I don't know who I'm speaking to, but whoever is here, soll man sein gesund, Racha v'atzlocha, Rabbo u'mufloga. You should have lots of success in everything they can do. Everybody should be healthy, and everybody's family should be healthy, and lots of happiness and joy in B'chol Ma'aseh Yedechem.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Rabbi Lou. Verbringen by the Thank you for me.
Amen. Sei gesund, everyone.